Hi ADHD friends, ready to become gutsy cooks? Let's start now. Today we're going to make beer bread. Beer bread has very few ingredients and a really rich taste. It is what's called a quick bread because it uses self-rising flour and not yeast. So let's get started. Gather equipment and ingredients. For this recipe, you're going to need a large mixing bowl, measuring cups, measuring spoons, a liquid measuring cup, a wooden mixing spoon, a spatula, a pastry brush, a 9x4 metal baking tin, 3 cups of self-rising flour, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 12 ounces of beer, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 4 tablespoons of butter. Get ready. We're going to prepare the ingredients. Preheat the oven to 375 degrees. Melt the butter in the microwave on 20% power. Usually this is done by hitting cook time and then power level. You want to put a power level of 2. Brush the melted butter inside of the baking tin using that pastry brush. And then save the rest of the butter because we're going to use that later in the batter. Combine. Add the flour and sugar to the mixing bowl and mix counting to 30. Add beer and mix again counting to 45. Now here you have a choice. You can either add the melted butter into the batter and mix for another count of 45, or you can tip the batter into the baking tin and put the butter on top. You can see that's what I did in this recipe. And it works either way. Sometimes it's a little crispier and browner on top if you put the butter on top. You can try either way. Have an experiment. Heat. Bake in the oven at 375 for 50 minutes. That's 50 minutes. Set a timer for 50 minutes, or as I always recommend, set 2 timers in case something happens to one of them. Immediately remove the bread from the tin and cool on a wire rack for 20 minutes. So when it comes out of the oven, I want you to immediately take it out. You are going to need your pot holders for this. And set another timer for 20 minutes for the cooling. Finish and serve. Cut the slices as you serve them so that the loaf does not dry out. If you're not going to eat it all at once, you definitely only want to slice as you go along. Extra fancy. If you want to add cheese to the beer bread, you absolutely can do that. Add half a cup of shredded cheddar cheese. And if you add cheese, bake for a full hour, 60 minutes. You're going to need to do that just from the extra moisture for the cheese. Takes a little extra time in the oven. Careful. Only use a metal pan. Do not use a glass loaf pan. I've tested both and the metal pan works much better. Remove the loaf from the pan to cool and release the steam. I did say this up in the heat step, but I want to say it again. If you leave it in the pan to cool, it will become mushy. That steam will go back into the bread, and it is not a good result. Finally, if you cut the bread before it cools, it may be more crumbly. So you really want to give it that time to cool off and come together before you attempt to cut it. Of course, it's delicious though either way. If you like this recipe, please subscribe. Thank you for your time and attention. Now go get gutsy.